If you were just joining us, we opened our show this morning with potentially very big news from the NBA. Kevin Durant, watch his left ankle. This is in pregame warmups last night. This was meant to be his home debut as a member of the Phoenix Suns. He just slips there on what appears to be a wet spot. The understanding we have to this point is that it is a sprained ankle. He did not play last night. There will be an MRI today. And you take a look here at what the Suns have coming up. They've won 4 straight. They won the game huge last night, by the way. Devin Booker had an enormous night. But the overwhelming story, of course, is KD. They're currently 3 games up on the play-in spot and just 2 games back of second in the West. That's how closely bunched up everything is in the Western Conference. So with everything literally hanging in the balance between now and the end of the season, there is concern about that ankle of Kevin Durant. And here we go. The great Vince Carter up with us early, and the equally great Zach Lowe getting up with us today, too. Zach, we'll start with you. How do we describe the significance, as we wait for the MRI and we see just how significant this injury might be, how do you describe what hangs in the balance here?
I'm a big wait for the MRI guy. Don't panic before the MRI. And one of the benefits of Kevin Durant is there's no issues fitting him in like most superstar players. He's the most easily fittable superstar in NBA history. They're not going to need a month to figure out how to use Kevin Durant and all of that. But look, this was baked into the trade when they made it. Kevin Durant is 34 with some recent injuries that are concerning. Chris Paul is 37, and he seems to get hurt in the playoffs every year. I said this last week on this show. If the Suns suffer an injury to one of those guys at the wrong time, they will not be able to say, well, who could have possibly seen this coming? That said, one of their guiding philosophies of this trade was we accept that risk because A, it's Kevin Durant. B, we didn't think we were winning a title any other way in the next 5 years. And C, even if everything that goes wrong, we have Devin Booker, who's 26, and DeAndre Ayton, who's 24. We think those guys can stabilize us even through the worst case scenarios so we don't become like a lottery team like the Nets were in 3, 4, 5 years. But this was baked into the trade, and what hangs in the balance, Greeny, if the news is worse than expected, these guys are at least co-favorites in the West. The West becomes even more wide open if this is bad news, but we're all crossing our fingers, and we're all hoping it's not bad news, and KD comes back soon.
I hear what you're saying, and look, I get that some of this concern is baked into the conversation, but you don't expect it to come in pregame warmups before his first home game. So let's talk about it, VC. Let's talk about if he has to miss some time here. Now, this is a team with championship aspirations, whatever the risks they knew they were taking are. How much time do they need with him on the floor to have a chance to make that run?
Well, Greeny, Zach, this goes back to what I was saying when this initially happened. And to me, everybody's saying 2-3 years, that's their window. I just didn't see that as happening because of some of the things that Zach just laid out as far as their age, and KD gets hurt often. So does CP3 that gets hurt often. And then now you look at them, yes, they're still a very good team, but now you don't have those young guys, Cam Johnson, to rely on, or the other young man, I can't think of his name right now, who playing extremely. Mikal Bridges, thank you. You don't have guys like that to rely on coming off your bench to give you that spark. Yes, you got some veterans in Warren. You got some other young guys there that you rely on. But we were already saying that they're very good with their 4 guys. And then where else are they going to get shooting and some scoring? So that was the concern for me. Yes, I agree with you both when you say the West will be wide open if you don't have them. They'll still beat teams. They're still very good teams. I'm not saying that. But championship aspirations had a window of getting it done this year because of the injury-prone all-stars that they have, superstars. I don't want to just say that they're superstars. And maybe one more year after that. When you start going into year 3, like, hey, we're still trying to get done. That's a scary window, and you're taking a walk on the wild side, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So we have all of those concerns again. We'll wait on the word with Kate. Let's run the floor through some of the other NBA action from last night. The Mavericks lost Luka Doncic to an injury during the game, then lost to the Pelicans by 7. Doncic suffered a left thigh strain in the 3rd quarter. He'll have an MRI. His quote afterwards was, "It wasn't good." So I think there's cause for concern there. In Boston, the Celtics' 3-game losing streak is over. Jason Tatum finished with 30 and a big win over Portland. It was his 36th game this season with 30 or more. That's 3 shy of matching Larry Bird's franchise record. Then in L.A., Kawhi Leonard making posters. Check out that jam over Jakob Poeltl. He's up and he's in. Kawhi had 24 last night. Clippers beat his former team. But in this game, Fred VanVleet got teed up in the third quarter. You're seeing the moment here. He doesn't understand it. And then after the game, boy, did he go off. I'm sorry, what? Listen to this.
I don't mind. I'll take a fine. I don't really care. I thought, Ben Taylor was terrible tonight. I thought that most nights, a couple of the, out of the 3, there's 1 or 2 that just the game up. Tonight, you're competing pretty hard. The third quarter, I get a tech, changes the whole dynamic of the game, changes the whole flow of the game. And, most of the refs are trying hard. I like a lot of the refs are trying hard. They're pretty fair. They communicate well. And then you got the other ones who just want to be and just kind of the game up. Nobody's coming to see that. They come to see the players. And I think we're losing a little bit of the fabric of what the NBA is and was. And it's been disappointing this season. You could look up most of my texts this year have been with Ben Taylor officiating. So at a certain point as a player, you feel it's personal.
When keeping it real goes Rizzo, baby.
Holy smoke. So that's Fred VanVleet. You want perspective on it? The official, Ben Taylor, who he's talking about, VanVleet has gotten 8 technicals. 3 of them have come from that official. A 4th one came from another official in a game that Taylor was working. I'm not making a judgment. I'm merely pointing out the facts. VC, I wanted to get Bart in this too, just because, Bart has had some words with officials over the years. But VC, let me start with you. I mean, that's this is a former All-Star, Fred VanVleet. I mean, he's obviously a player with stature in the league. What should we take away from that?
Well, yeah, former All-Star, now a veteran that has gotten his money. And like you said, he started off, he prefaced it by saying this: I don't mind paying the fine. Basically, hey, I'm about to let loose and empty the clip what I got to say. And I mean, obviously he feels like it's personal and he let it be known and he's going to get fined handsomely because of it. And, sometimes, I mean, you watch games. I mean, I've been in situations where there's some refs you feel like, you go back and forth, and once you stare at them a little bit, there's some conversation. They're always looking to see what's next. You're looking at me wrong, boom, they have the power. So, I mean, I understand it, and I feel like sometimes that, we as players have to be careful on how we approach them. I mean, we always said, it's how you approach them early in the game, which kind of leads to these things. Now, if you handle it right early, you get a little leeway and you get a little room to go after a ref or whatever, so on and so forth. But if you go after them wrong early and they're looking to give you technicals, then that's a different story. So I learned that early where, hey, you play the game early, and then, they give you a little leeway to have some back and forth.
Zach, what should we say about all this?
Yeah, I don't know Ben Taylor at all. I don't know if he has even some subconscious thing with Fred VanVleet. You just read off the technical stats. Those are at the very least worth reading off and knowing. And this wouldn't be the first case in NBA history of a specific ref and a specific player just kind of not getting along, going back to Tim Duncan and Joey Crawford even. It wouldn't be the first time ever. And whatever Fred VanVleet just said, he's almost certainly going to get fined, and we'll just have to see what happens. I would just like to see, is it just the technicals, or does Fred VanVleet think Ben Taylor's like a bad ref? He's missing this call, he's missing that call. I'd like a little more context and a little less name calling. But, look, he said what he said. He's almost certainly going to get fined. And the next test will be when they cross paths again, because you do not want to get in a situation as a player or a ref where this is an ongoing thing that gets talked about every game.
Yeah, I would remove the almost. I think he's going. Not only is he going to get fined, I think it's going to be a substantial reaction from the league. I'd be stunned if it is not, because this went beyond the stuff we usually hear. Bart, from a football player's perspective, just hearing that and whatever interaction you had on the field with the officials.
Well, I once got kicked out of the game, cost me $30,000, so I understand what he's talking about.
He threw a penalty flag into the stands. But go ahead.
Well, he deserved it. Well,
okay.
But the thing is, when you think about like referees, sometimes they take it personal. Sometimes personalities just don't clash. I think sometimes referees have to understand it's an emotional game. from the player standpoint, and sometimes they have to give them leeway to be able to express their frustrations. I mean, staring at them and all those things. Like, we're not here to see you. Understand that you're not supposed to be part of the game and determine outcomes.
So let me give Vince Carter the final word on all of this. Again, VC, go.
Well, one thing that you said, Greeny, that I totally agree is you want to make sure that Ben Taylor isn't a reason why you're not in a position that you want to get in. Maybe you get the sixth position. Maybe you need a win, and you and Ben Taylor have this static where it causes you to either lose your focus or get a technical because of, like Bart just said, of a stare down or just a snarl or whatever, a hand gesture. You just want to make sure you said what you said, it is what it is, but when it comes down to you playing the game and needing wins, you kind of have to let that go to get wins, because this is crunch time for the Raptors, so they need as many wins, and you don't want to lose a game because of a silly technical or for VanVleet, of all guys, to get thrown out.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.